Behold the crucifix. What does it symbolize? Pallid incompetence hanging on a tree. I gaze into the glassy eye of your fearsome Jehovah and pluck him by the beard. I uplift a broad axe and split open his worm-eaten skull. I break away from all conventions that do not lead to my success and happiness.
Very well said, man. That's, by the way, if you didn't notice, that's taking it farther than Nietzsche himself.
Yes, it is.
That was Anton LaVey, as he pointed out. I don't think he pointed out. Well, he pointed out to me before we started this. Yeah, LaVey took a lot of inspiration from Nietzsche. I think
a number of
I'm saying
different,
his
like Mark Twain. The more I hear about that guy,
Morgan Locking.
that guy was satanic as fuck.
Yeah. You know what? This is what's taught in our school.
Yeah,
This
right.
is
Huckleberry
interesting.
Finn. Yeah, apparently he was in him and Benjamin Franklin was another one. He created he had made that big experiment with electricity. But
Whoa, I didn't
I'm
realize
pretty
that.
sure, if I'm not mistaken, Mark Twain and Benjamin Franklin, among other politicians at the time and other bohemians, if you will, they were a part of this thing called the Hellfire Club, which was basically this as far as the accounts,
dude.
they weren't practicing magic and stuff like that or the occult, but they were acknowledging, they would go into this like underground place and just have debauchery, gay sex, orgies, drink, get fucked up, and
Well, he
and
just
have a big time.
he just presented the true Hellfire Club, not this bullshit that culture is feeding you.
I have a T-shirt of it, dude. Apparently,
people-
it's from Stranger Things, and I've never
I've heard
watched
of
a
that.
damn episode of it.
Yeah,
so-
we both have it. We've mentioned this before. We spent a good deal of our teenager years really going back further. Everything from 1922 Nosferatu up
What a
until
great film.
80s splatter films. We just always said fuck it if it's new for the most part.
Right. It's like McKenna said. He said his philosophy on it for a long time was, if they're not dead, I don't care about it. I'm not reading it.
That's what we.
I related to that so much.
That's so crazy. Even our teachers, we surround ourselves with these, mostly great people who's been dead for a great many of years.
Not the sanitized.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say something real quick about. It reminded me of when I was talking about the Hellfire Club.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case people are not aware of it, just to expose our government a little bit. There's footage of. So it goes way back, maybe late 1800s, early 1900s. That's Bohemian Grove, and
Okay.
and this is so I think probably so there's the Nixon tapes. They're very famous. You've probably heard some of them.
Yeah.
And they're famous tapes of Nixon, President Nixon talking. Okay, and there is one part of those tapes where he says this. So he said something about the Bohemian Grove. He said I go there from time to time. He said that's the faggiest goddamn thing I've ever seen. That's what he says. No, and then there's that. So there's
He actually says it like that. Yeah.
Swear to God. And there's that's like his exact quote. The faggiest goddamn shit I've ever seen. Obviously a very homophobic comment, but in this politicians like to portray themselves as Christian people, and it's very obvious that they're not. They practice all kinds of debauchery, and there's footage of them too. People like Reagan and other politicians and bankers, high up people, CEOs. Alex Jones snuck in there with a camera one night and filmed the ceremony. And they had this owl god that they were
Mm-hmm.
sacrificing an effigy to, and they were quoting all this stuff and very pagan like stuff, coming from a lot of the Christians like to kiss Ronald Reagan's ass.
Oh yeah, we
You
know
know.
somebody in particular that actually called Ronald Reagan a godly man.
Yeah,
He's a
check out the Bohemian Grove. Like
godly man.
the fact that people don't investigate this
Seeming
stuff.
to be disillusioned.
But isn't it interesting that these high up people, they're practicing this type of paganism, but they want us to think that they're practicing, Christianity. It almost seems like they want us to practice that type of.
So
It doesn't matter if the world blows up; it's part of the prophecy,
let's look into this a little bit deeper and spend a little bit of time on this just for a minute. What he just explained. The truth is revealed by just this. You can do your own research and find these things out.
Do not take anything for granted.
So the truth is that these people in their so-called high up ranks in politics, people who say that they are running this place and
Who
They-
really think that they have power, which their power is an illusion, obviously, because it's very temporary.
that's so true. And another thing is, you see, they want to portray how horrible anything besides Christianity is.
Yeah.
So that will be what the puppets, what the
The
masses
drones, the
will
mindless
follow.
drones.
I say this all the time, and you know what? For people, most people who follow whatever they're told,
Yeah.
they're mindless sheep.
Yep.
Is what Crawley talks
Yeah.
about. LaVey talks about these people are weak people. They're under the illusion that they have power. They're doing these things to at least-
Manipulate.
This is all that it is, manipulation.
Yeah.
Everything from just say secrets of what's really going on. There's so much more, for example, what's going on with this war situation than what we know about. There's more
my
going
God.
on.
It's scary, man, because
You talked about them
Yeah.
masking a godlike
yeah.
appearance. Donald Trump said just earlier that I just want to thank God for letting everything go okay. That motherfucker
Cameron.
doesn't care anything
And
about
I've been seeing this exposed on a lot of Reddit forums and things like that. Do you realize that one of the big reasons that a lot of people voted for him was because he promised to keep peace? That was one of his big things. He said this, I will have the Ukraine war stopped within 24 hours.
What
the
the
Ukraine
fuck?
war is still raging
It's
on.
gotten worse.
Exactly. He promised that. He said that
It's gotten worse.
this is what he said, quote, he is the candidate for peace. He said, he literally, the quote that they showed was this. He said, I am the candidate for peace. Then he said, I am peace.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
fuck kind of weird statement is that?
All I want to say.
And then here he is engaging in unnecessary conflict.
He can, the way I see it, why the fuck don't he just deal with whatever he brings forth upon himself instead
Yeah.
of bringing innocent people into it, especially, people who actually want nothing more than peace.
Yeah.
It goes back to the hippies. This is why they should be praised.
They didn't
You know.
realize until they
They were destroyed.
they dropped acid and then they looked around at nature and the flowers and said, "Oh my God, we're so disconnected with this." And then they would look at the war. If you look at war under the lenses of LSD or a or some kind of psychedelic, it seems so ridiculous because you realize, oh my God, we're just like them. We're all the same. We're all
You
at
know,
one.
I think a good thing to consider would be whatever you're told to be the truth, examine it and then go generally the opposite.
Because whatever you're told from your parents, from your local,
Because they're getting this information from the so-called source as well, whatever
Yeah.
TV tells them.
just
you know.
the fact that, see, this is the thing, all the knowledge that's passed down by
Yeah.
parents, I'm talking, I'm sure there's probably good parents and highly conscious parents out there, but like,
For the most part.
yeah, but a lot of people I see around here, a lot of parents, our parents,
we're judging by.
yeah, they are trying to instill in their children the traditions that they were given. So that type of information is very surface level information.
Yeah.
You know, me and you, and people like
How can
us,
you be satisfied with that?
we are looking for occult
Yeah.
knowledge. Occult means hidden, and the truth is hidden. And the truth does not, the people that, the powers that be, if you will, in the physical form, they don't want the individual to know these occult knowledge, these occult knowledge, because that would empower us.
Yeah.
Our culture wants to disempower the individual as much as possible. That's why we should not partake in the cultural drugs. That's why we should not partake in the cultural ideology and dig deep into reality, and abandon culture completely.
Yeah, man. Another thing I like to talk about for a little bit is the harm, like, that comes from worshiping these inferior people who we call celebrities.
Yeah, cult of the surface.
These people are the most manipulating,
Fake, plastic.
fake, worthless. There is nothing. And you look at these modern, like, for the most part anyway, musicians, the ones that's even popular, whatever that means.
Yeah.
People flock to somebody, and let's talk about why this is, and this is the truth. They get popular not really because they're just such a good singer and actor, actress. They are popular because people think that they are attractive to look at, and
they're playing on our monkey impulses, not our. We like things not to have this superiority complex or anything, but I feel drawn. I feel like you do too. To things that appeal to the spirit.
Yeah.
More so than our monkey impulses.
And not this type of, well, they don't even like that term of spiritualism. Christians are usually the ones, though, that are very, very drawn to materialism, what a nice house that they have, what kind of cars that they drive. They are drawn to going to the movies on Saturday night, staying out late before they go to church the next morning. These things have to be said. These things, it has to be stressed to a certain level. As we've mentioned, to raise awareness for what's really going on here. I would love if there was no such thing as Hollywood. We are supposed to not even make an attempt to put ourselves out there, because we are supposed to accept researching these, as I mentioned, so-called celebrities, but these people are actually the inferior. And as arrogant as it sounds, I'm just using this as an example. Me and my brother here have so much more to stand on than what they stand on. I would not trade lives with this millionaire, modern, so-called movie star, whatever that means. This acting and movies they do is an illusion, and to take it a step further, their lives are an illusion.
This is the thing that's really infuriating too. They can spew their bullshit and their facile ways of thinking, and they can distribute that to the world. If mine and your channel gets popular, it'll most likely be censored.
Like a psych substance.
Exactly.
He's had so much trouble over the years for simply giving correct advice on how to do safe trips, psychedelics, how to trip sit, things you should do prior to that, giving the possibilities of maybe some things we should consider before doing them, the right kind of environment we should be in, and Oh, he's always went through hell.
He is
on
one
this.
of he's saved many lives, you know, and
And
he teaches
people-
how to test substances and
If a person had a channel, as he mentioned this before, wine tasting,
oh yeah,
that'd be completely okay.
Yeah,
This we
something
need,
much more destructive than something like LSD or kratom or
we've got to examine these things.
Yeah.
We've got to. Everybody, please, don't just do it because somebody asks you to. Look into all these things. Ask yourself, why am I supporting an already millionaire who, you know, ball player of some kind? As Terrence McKenna says, let's, you know, you want to play football, basketball, baseball, let's go
don't
outside.
sit on your
do it.
ass and drink a beer and watch it. Go
You know-
outside with your best friend and play.
I would love for everybody to break away from this illusion.
Yeah.
And quit,
Don't watch TV.
you know, get away from all of it. Get away from the news.
Yes. Oh my!
You
I haven't.
know,
Cameron, I have
you know,
not
Fox News
watched-
is so wet right now. All of these,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
just telling all about
Oh,
this
they
horrible.
love
They
it.
love showing fires and
They
just all.
love
That's
it.
what they fucking get.
They
off
get
on.
off on it. They
So
love
fuck
it.
those people. First
It
of
is
all,
so despicable.
they
Cameron,
they
you
sit
know.
back, they drink their coffee, they go home, and even if they drink
Oh
their
yeah.
beer,
Oh yeah.
they get right back at it again the
Mhm.
next day. They are inferior.
They are inferior. You realize, dude, I do not watch the news. I do not have TV.
I know
I
you
have
don't.
a DVD player.
Yeah. No, look,
I don't. And the advertisements, dude.
Dude.
It's so insidious.
fucking Hollywood, the way it was so many years ago,
Totally different.
it's so very different. You know, if we're going to watch a movie, you better believe it's at least fucking like 30, 40 years old for the most part.
for sure.
And it's just this hatred toward the way it is now.
There's a shift that happened not too long ago.
Something recently has changed in a lot of ways.
Mm.
You know, let's just take the modern Democrat is so much more different than if you are examining some of the qualities that Kennedy had, you know, back
Yeah.
in the 60s.
He
He
did
seemed
not-
like a cool ass guy,
He
man.
probably got killed because he didn't want Vietnam to happen. You know, they had that. They do these things. They're called false flag operations, Cameron. A lot of people think 9/11 was one, and it's like they'll do like fake things,
Yeah.
fake attacks, in order to try to implement some operation that they're wanting to do. A lot of people think. What's it called? Operation. Can't quite remember what it's called, but there's this conspiracy theory that very soon, maybe it'll be an alien or
Yeah.
it'll come down, but it'll take the form as like Jesus,
Yeah.
and
Oh my.
it will manipulate so many people,
Dude.
you know, by thinking that that's what's going on. It's called false flag. In Vietnam, they were doing a type of false flag operation where there was like faking, like some kind of attack with Cuba, so that they could go into Vietnam War. I'm not sure exactly how that all worked, but the basic idea is they were trying to fake something so that they could go to Vietnam. And it literally went through the Senate, it went through everything until it got to JFK. It's so insane that
It's so
the people
obvious, man.
previous to JFK, they said, let it go, that's fine, yeah, let's do that. And the JFK was like, what the fuck, this is fucked up. Not too long, he was dead. He was talking about
Yeah.
secret societies and how they need to be exposed, all types of things. Also, there's some accounts that JFK was doing LSD.
Hey, that don't surprise me,
Yeah.
man.
He
It
was
really
definitely
don't.
doing speed. You know, he was taking amphetamines.
I can see that.
Yep.
Judging by some of his interviews that I've watched, I'm like, that motherfucker's got a pretty good
Sharp.
lot of energy right there. He's
Yeah.
on top of this, man. He don't stutter, man.
Yeah.
Like, he's good.
Yeah,
Joe Biden needs some of that.
that's a sad thing. He probably did.
Well, that
Like-
motherfucker's in bad shape with that.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, this is very interesting, you know, and it's very heartbreaking at the same time. It's more interesting when you're sitting back detached from what it is, and it's heartbreaking for people believing that it's the truth.
Yes.
They're believing what they're being fed.
Yeah.
Stay away from the news.
dude,
stay away from
People that are, you know, Christian, for example, this is always been one of the points that I will bring up. And I don't go around fucking arguing
we don't
with Christians.
say, you know what, this is our channel though.
Yeah.
And this is our time to get some of these things
Exactly.
off our
Yeah.
chest.
And you don't have to watch this. You know what I'm saying?
Look, nobody does anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
But if there are people like that have like minds to us, this is a way that we can
we
kind of
talk
reach
about
out.
things that's so-called taboo.
Right.
And just, they're talking about psilocybin.
Right.
Oh, that's
the
illegal.
fruit of the garden of good and evil. But some Christians that will maybe say, "What is that around your neck?" And I'll explain it, and they'll be saying, "Oh, I'm a Bible believing Christian," and go on with that rap.
It's the pentagram dedicated to Henry George.
Twilight Zone reference. But they will always tell their Christian rap, and I like to say to them, just to get maybe the engines going a little bit, I'll say, you have the freedom to practice whatever you like, but you did subscribe to the local religion, and
Local.
so if
religion.
so if you if you were so quick to grab on to the philosophy of your parents and to your peers, maybe most likely to gain some type of collective identity. What if he was born in the Middle East? You would probably be a Muslim.
I brought this up too.
And you gotta do. You need to study. All of these things. If you don't like one way of thinking, you need to study it and talk about why you don't like it.
Yeah. This is, I think, the biggest thing to consider out of all of these things is to not only do your own homework, but to do homework on many different ways of looking at these things. I mean, you can acquire so much knowledge from, different philosophers over the years, to alchemists, to people delving into these different magical techniques, Buddhism. I mean, the list goes on and on with that. There's so many great teachers, from Carl Jung to...
Wow, I would love to delve into him some more, man.
We need to get, more.
Brilliant.
I recently just read a quote from him that just exploded so many different ideas, because that's the way we feel. And he said, the universe has isolated you for a reason. I've always thought, like, why am I such a fucking misfit?
Yes,
like a true misfit.
Yeah, truly.
Not a misfit that,
we seem more outgoing when we get together because we click so well, but on the outside, we don't engage in conversation so much because
we really truthfully had a hard time through school, and now that's carried over to work, and we do the best we can. We make it, but we're definitely not what you would call anywhere near close to click.
Yeah.
And we see things just so different from a lot of people do. The truth is, what we're after is finding out the purpose in this.
Yes, sir.
We're interested in the truth.
Yes, sir.
And
if
humbly
I
seeking
have
the
oriented myself to the truth, no matter how bad it or how dissatisfied it may be, how dissatisfying the truth may be to my ego, I want to seek the truth no matter what it is.
Yeah, man. Let's give an example real quick. Today is a day to where, at this very time of making this video, is a church service going on.
It's right over there.
And we can humbly state a fact. We are being, by this conversation, by the plants that we are on, so moved in so many different ways. Inspiration, not to mention, we've mentioned this a lot, but it's just always one of the main points, that consciousness of that love energy can carry you so far.
And love is not what the Christian God represents. It's not this authority. The Christian God is an authoritarian God. And this is one of the reasons I do enjoy the way God is portrayed in the Bhagavad Gita and some of these ancient Hindu scripts. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I will come to anyone who seeks me in whatever form. So, you know, in this perspective, the pagans who are earnestly trying to connect with these real energies in the universe, Krishna will be there. That is me, you know. That's not my original form, but I will come, you know. And he says this. He says, you know, you are a human. You're only going to be here for a short time. You're confused. You're asleep. You know, that's the whole reason you got into this game, to wake up. I love you. You know, I will
Brother,
always
man.
be with you. You know.
This is the truth, man.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ
Mm-hmm.
would be so angry if he knew this is the way this religion was being practiced.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this before. Jesus Christ portrayed in the Bible is so fucking... Okay, I'm going to give you an example.
He didn't say a damn thing about church.
Say anything about any of the stuff that people talk about, that
No.
will ramble about. So just say there's, you know, you're a parent and, you know, this happened to my wife, by the way. This is the way she was raised, which is strange because her family was, you know, nowhere near, you know, wealthy, which society wants you to think that that's one of the most important things. They didn't want her to talk to another girl down the road because she lived in a trailer.
Wow.
Casey told me that. She said that's
that's their way of assessing someone's worth, what they got.
when you know, when I first, you know, started dating my wife, they asked me the first thing, what do you do for a living? That's how we,
Right.
well, not us, but
Mm.
people,
Yeah.
you know,
On the maturity.
figure out how somebody's a good person or not. Okay, what if you tell somebody, a stranger
Mhm.
that's a Christian, if
I live in a van.
oh, that's
You're-
another one?
You're a homeless person, you know. You need to get a job. How you taking showers, man?
All right. If you had to choose between confessing one of these two things, telling this uptight Christian person I'm either an alcoholic or I smoke weed every night, they would gag at the thoughts of you. And now, again, we are going from facts in our area. Cannabis is mostly, especially by middle-aged to older people, very hated.
Yep. I don't think I know exactly why.
And I'll let you explain. I'll be right back.
Okay. I think cannabis is frowned upon more. You know, alcohol is such a big part of, you know, this area's, a lot of other areas too, the lives of people, you know. They work, you know, all week, and, you know, when they get home, they sit back and turn the TV on and crack them open a beer, man, and get smashed, you know, and then all of these advertisements that come on. You know, when you're in an alcohol state, no, you see a commercial, you know, only $1,000 down on this new GMC truck, you know, and got a 20% interest, and, you know, you got a 2-year monthly payment or whatever. You know, when you're on a little bit of alcohol, you might think, yeah, man, yeah, I might do that. I need me a new truck, man. You know, you're susceptible. You know, cannabis is it has an opposite effect of alcohol. And I do have experience with alcohol. I'm pretty limited because I don't enjoy it and don't like to toxify my body. But I know what it does. And
See what popped there, by the
yes,
way,
sir.
brother?
That sounds pretty
Thank
good.
you. I can't wait for it.
Yeah. You know, cannabis. Okay, alcohol has a effect where it numbs you. It makes you less aware, so that you're more likely to be. You know, if you've ever seen drunk people, they'll say stupid things. They don't think twice about what they're saying. Cannabis, on the other hand, you know, you're super aware of how you're treating people. Try to watch fucking ads on cannabis. You know, I can't do it. If I'm stoned on cannabis and I'm watching these crazy advertisements, I'm like, do they think that I'm this stupid? That this is going to affect me, or you know, I'm strong in my will. I'm not going to do something just because the influence of capitalistic tactics, you know, and not only that, but just it's kind of a pagan shamanic drug.
Say that you're somebody who, and I hope that nobody watching this feels this way because it's very unfortunate, and it really is unfortunate. Just say you actually the type of person that loves to get drunk on alcohol.
You're not doing your body any good, man.
You're not doing your body, your mind, your spirit,
no,
any service. Matter of fact, you're causing everything to be much worse. So let us just point this out very briefly. We're just having a conversation. We have gotten, if you want to call it, drunk, but with the sacred god plant of kava.
Yeah.
We've never actually stressed that aspect of it. With enough shells, you can get extremely
high
up there. Now,
in a way that's maybe you wouldn't expect, but
it's
the kava community calls it crunk.
Yeah. So, as he has mentioned on previous videos, just say you wanted to drink 40 glasses, this is insane though, of kava a day.
You'd be totally fine.
You'd be completely, totally fine, and you have no fucking addiction if you've done it for 6 months in a row and quit for a day. So it's just, okay.
I have done that. I have done it daily for many days and stopped. Maybe I'm waiting on a package to arrive. No problem at all.
I want to fucking reveal the goddamn truth, man. Okay. The fucking goddamn truth is the sacred kava plant should be in the place in culture to where alcohol is in, and alcohol should really be this thing all the way down here to not many people know about
it. It's more toxic than pure heroin.
It's so crazy, man. And I swear to you, I can't help but start ranting about it when I kind of
I get very frustrated too.
It because I feel so goddamn great and healthy.
Yes.
And I'm like, why can't everybody feel great?
Dude, I mean, me and you get loaded all the time.
We have had a lot of shells today of kava. And we are able to
We're not incapacitated.
Conversations.
Yeah, we're not obnoxious. And
this actually does the opposite. It will humble you.
It really does.
This is what society needs.
While making you more open, and you get this euphoria, and you, I love to study on it.
It's he read some excerpts from Buddhism, and I just can't say enough about how much I was moved. But yeah, to wrap up this portion of it, for me anyway, every time I get up there on some shells, I just can't help but actually deeply hurt for people killing themselves on alcohol. So I want to say fuck alcohol.
Yeah.
And we will never drink alcohol.
I will never drink alcohol again.
Because we have kava.
Exactly.
And
I do not want to support these companies
who are
that
actually hurting
off.
Kratom and kava.
That are hurting millions of people.
Okay, you want to hear something?
Yeah.
This has been going on for years, and all of a sudden, these cannabis vape pens are becoming a problem now.
I know.
The THC.
Cameron.
That's all of a sudden a problem.
There's something really strange going on, okay?
Fuck
I've been seeing, Cameron, North Carolina, Texas, all kinds of states. I'm pretty sure Connecticut. They're banning kratom and cannabis in all of these states. I swear to God, I'm not joking about this. They're throwing kratom in with the weed and saying that we're going to make it illegal. That is so mind blowing with the research that we have.
Very mind blowing.
Oh my gosh!
You know what it shows us?
Isn't that insane?
It shows us that they are out
to completely manipulate us.
To manipulate us and to fuck us.
Yep.
They don't want us to have access.
People are getting intoxicated on things that are not going to harm them.
You would be
okay. What about the people? We need to keep the liver doctors in business.
You know what's weird? The most important thing, the only thing worth talking about, isn't being talked about. You have all these debates that people's just raving and ranting about. Talk about this. Bring this stuff up. I want to talk about what's actually important.
The religious use of it.
What about the true religion? What about getting your consciousness up to the goddamn high gods? None of that stuff's talked about.
If a Christian can put a 10 Commandments in the school, have prayers. I'm pretty sure Trump passed that where you can pray and stuff again. then if they can have their organizations, their churches, they can stand on the side of the road and protest in the name of God. I went through this town up above here.
Deja vu.
Really, you do this every time, dude.
Shit, on our second fucking video,
Yeah.
every time we do this.
But yeah, I took a drive.
Fucking been here before.
We have, but it was like a year or two ago, and there was people just down here at this town, and we're saying, repent or go to hell and all this
Oh,
stuff.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Like on the Rob Zombie movie, House of a Thousand Corpses. He says, do you want to know God?
Yeah.
Do you want to be touched by the divine? And then he was talking all this Christian stuff, but his truck had an upside down cross driving around, so I guess he was just making a joke out of it. That just hit me when you said that,
Yeah.
but I didn't mean to interrupt
All
you.
good, man. I mean, we have this built into our Constitution, the separation of church and state, and the freedom to practice the religion that the individual wants. And, I believe, and a lot of other people believe that have experiences with these plants, they believe that, like, this is one of the most essential aspects of religion. This is, people that are in church, I've said this before, they seem like people gathering around dry tinder and pretending that there's flames coming from them. It's the psychoactive plants that ignite this, and
Not good,
it's
man.
a key thing that's missing out of these religions.
The only flames coming out of the middle of that church service is the flames of manipulation.
The flames of the ego
That's
of the
pres-
guy that gets at the front of the room and pretends that he has all the answers.
Yeah, the truth is we're really tired of things being ran this way. What we want to do as much as possible from what we learned, and hopefully, more people will start to come around and
We're
delve
not
into
come
these-
around. Sorry.
And we could all teach each other. We can help each other.
Yes.
But the first thing is first.
Nobody's gonna be teaching anybody anything if they're caught in this mind web.
Look, we love more than anything talking to each other. Every time we get together, we don't talk about anything else. We don't talk about what goes on in our jobs. We don't talk about, look, if I get in an argument with my wife the night before I come over, I might mention it in passing, but I
Yeah.
don't spend all day on it because we have actual work to do.
Yes, sir.
And you know what? You want to talk about people being lazy? The only thing that's
Mhm.
lazy, the true laziness, is not looking at the great work
Yep.
and getting into that. That's true lazy. Laziness is not doing your own research
Yep.
and accepting a ridiculous method to so-called spiritualism.
Yes, sir.
These are the things that we have to get back to. I've mentioned this before, but the old gods, people who reach back to those, paganism, they want to call this, the Christians call this New Age spiritualism, but they're the New Age spiritualism.
Yes, sir.
There's, and we could probably talk for, without turning this off, maybe 8 to 10 hours, talking about the falsities.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Sounds good.
That's what Norman Bates said one time. So
Yeah, that's where I got that off
yeah.
from. I'll say it. And-
Falsity.
If it's wrong, semantics is another illusion. This is just our way to communicate. We got to
The
get
language is limited.
very
time.
limited. I've been having, and I know you have too, revelations, man. And I just can't I can't get it out because I don't know how to put it really into words. Sometimes that does happen.
Yes, sir. I have revelations too, man, every day, basically, and some of them are like a flash, and it will strike you, and you might not be able to really talk about it, but it happens all the time. Some of the times we can talk about it if you can grab onto it, but
These things are very important.
I don't think you will be having revelations if you're caught, in the Maya. The Bhagavad Gita talks about do not unsettle the ignorant. So probably God Himself probably won't unsettle the ignorant. It's like if you start to awaken, or if you start experimenting with plants or psychedelics, especially, people notice synchronicities start happening. You know, when they start breaking out of the cultural illusion and start to see things as they really
Okay,
are.
I'm so thankful you brought this up
Mhm.
because this is the truth of the matter. When you break away, when you get a good portion of the hooks removed from your body, whether it's things in culture, realizing the truths and realizing the things that are just bombarding our brains every day, you start to get away from that a little bit, then we can call it the spiritual realms will start to reveal
Start to open up.
and open up and show you so many
Yes,
truths.
sir.
And somebody who's went through that, they will understand it. It
Mhm.
sounds a bit maybe off,
Schizophrenic.
and I do hope that's not the case. But like I said, you just kind of have to get out there a little
Yep.
bit away from these problems
Yes,
in
sir.
which we take in as truth.
Yes, sir.
Then it will start to happen.
Yeah. You know, McKenna, he talked about synchronicities. You remember that story he talked about where he was a cave dweller and he was smoking hashish outside
One of
his
my
cave,
favorite stories.
and
Yeah.
he
When
was
I was
thinking,
staying down here with you, you showed me that.
yeah, and McKenna was having this fantasy about all this food that he would like.
Yeah.
You know, it was something like, we have salmon packed in ice, and he was thinking about all these things, and then he noticed this like dot out in the distance. I think he said he was in Israel. I think that's where he
Oh,
was
yeah.
at the time. He saw this this like dot that as it moved closer became apparent that it was a person, and as he came closer and closer, he had like maybe like a rolling tray or some sort of container, and he said, and this guy had left mid shift in this job at like a hotel, like a luxurious hotel, and he just raided the kitchen, and he had all of those things that he was fantasizing about. You know, that's just so on the nose, but things like that happen.
Oh man.
And what do you take of that? What do you make of that?
One of them were chocolates.
Yes,
a bunch
chocolates,
of chocolates. And really not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy who he met with all this food, he had just kind of abruptly quit his job.
Right.
And no, he was taking a couple things with him there, the way I took it. And this is something we talk about from time to time. Actually, probably not as much as we really could. Synchronicities are getting more and more insane each day.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to tell you one thing that's really weird. Other than the synchronicities, I've been having, like, just say a dream that I had the other night. I could very well forget about it, and then tonight I would dream that dream again.
Yeah.
To the same. It's like deja vu in the dreams.
Dude, I would have that. One of the most weird, one of the weird experiences on mushrooms is this deja vu feeling. Okay. Sometimes it's like, oh my god, you know, when it's your first time tripping, whether smoking DMT or taking a high dose of mushrooms, that tryptamine world looks familiar, even if you've never done it. So that's a weird thing. I think it has to do with, I think that we probably go to those states in our dreams and just don't remember. But another thing is, even when you've done it a lot, you'll have a deja vu feeling. That's really hard to explain. It's really weird.
I could only imagine.
Dude, I had this one that this guy that I used to work with, I had this revelation.
Call him and be like, dude,
I didn't call him, but I sent him a message. I said,
relationship with you going
yes.
on right now, man.
I said, there's something going on in between us right now. I don't know what it is, but
and
it's
you
very
really wasn't
special.
too big on the character as well, right? Like,
I wasn't
nothing
very
against
close.
him.
No,
but
nothing
just
against
like,
him, but yeah, I wasn't super close with him at all. And he was like, haha, you know, having fun or whatever.
Like patting her back. Or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, there's things going on that we just do not know
Yeah.
is happening.
I'm gonna run to the restroom extremely
Alright.
quick, my good man.
So I was listening to McKenna today, and he said, he was talking about the dosages for taking mushrooms, and he said buy a scale. You must buy a scale. Don't just start eating, an unknown amount, because you're probably going to undershoot it. He said, when you show someone what 5 grams looks like, they are appalled. It's several mouthfuls of mushrooms, and 5 dried grams for a 145-pound person is most likely going to be enough to really catapult you into that tryptamine world. And a lot of people, and I understand that there's benefits to microdosing, and I've done it myself. Although, I really think that the shamanic potential of the mushroom is its most important part. The mushroom is very interesting because it talks to you in your native language. It would make sense to take a drug and for you to see strange things, for you to contemplate strange things. But to take a drug and for it to wrap its arm around you and say, well, there's a few things you need to know.
That's the best way to word that. Is so cool.
Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. And just, bam, harangue you with information. It might say, let me show you distant worlds that have disintegrated into nothingness. The mushroom says, I've been there, I've done that. I percolate between the stars. I am the life form that connects all other life forms into the hyperspatial dimensions. I am a evolution catalyst. And I come from planet 1 to C17. It's so specific when it talks to you too, and you can ask it questions. And you can navigate through the mushroom
Now, can
experience.
you tell the difference of the mushroom itself compared to the different beings or whatever?
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
That just got me thinking on that, actually.
Yeah, I always, I don't think I've ever had an experience where the mushroom itself took a form and said, "This is me. This is
it
my
just
real
kind of
self."
talked over top of
It
you.
talks. Yep, you hear it and you hallucinate
Okay.
vividly. And all these beings,
Does it sound scary in a way?
No, really.
Intimidating?
It can be take on a scary form, but most of the time it's not demonic or anything like that. But it reveals itself in many
beings
forms.
within the mushroom is kind of it sounds like
yes, it can be
demonic.
It can be. I've seen legit. What you would, if you were to draw what you think a demon would look like. I've seen that in the mushroom experience, and I've also seen angelic beings. The most one I've ever seen are elven beings. Elven, they're really jovial and they like to tell jokes. And they do these triple entendres. You know what that is?
No.
Triple entendre is like a joke that has 3 different meanings all wrapped in one joke. It's really strange. And then I've seen the insectoids. And the insectoids, they man, I can almost think of how one looks like. And they're
huge. Are they not?
Yeah, they're
I imagine them being so big for some reason.
But the hallucinations are really beautiful. Geometry, when I've done about 3 grams in that range, I swear to God that it's like I see grids. Which is just so strange. It's
the
this
creation,
is,
almost.
It's I'm getting to the basis of reality,
we've talked
Okay,
about this topic before. You know, sometimes days where you know him and his girlfriend are off the same day. They will spend obviously the day together, and I might come up really late at night. And I remember the last time I'd done that, we had this conversation. Really interesting. I figured I would throw it out there. But this mushroom, this goddess, um, it's possible that this is the god of the jungle, if you will, the god of this earth. Possibly not the same god, that the way he talked about it, that hung the stars. That could be a completely different ball game with that. But perhaps, that it is the same. One of the most interesting, but it's interesting for me, much more scary for him. And I'm talking about my brother here. He was in a frightened part of the trip, and something dark revealed itself to him, and it was the most detailed, the scariest, most macabre, whatever word to use to describe the dark, devilish. Yes, and it's as he described, something that the devil himself would sit upon. And shortly after that, this just creepiest black draperies would just come down. And it seems like a lot of people had seen different things on these trips, but also a lot of people share some similarities on these trips as well. I've listened and read, we've listened to McKenna talk about something he referred to as the meat locker.
Oh God.
And he's described these as well.
Yep. It's like a dimension made of muscle.
And that these different, and I want to talk a little bit about this plant that people was using a certain time way back in ancient times, and they had a very negative-ish view on this existence and this plant, or maybe called seed, I should say, Datura.
Oh yeah.
I think this is something I haven't even told you about this, brother, but I've been researching this plant a little bit, this seed a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And
it's very interesting, although very dangerous, very toxic, very strange.
Which is very strange for something like this to be taught. Now, did Psych Substance try this by any chance?
Fuck no.
Okay, I was thinking, I don't know why I was thinking he might have.
Fuck no.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about Psych Substance real quick before I continue. I've brought him up various times throughout our videos, and I love the guy. We both love the guy. Yeah, like he mentioned earlier, he's helped so many people be more healthy in the things that they do and be more safe. But I do feel like, at least this point in his life, some of our mystical, I don't really know the word, doesn't really line up very well.
Right.
And obviously that's okay. We all are, in
different stages of our lives.
Different stages, and he has so much to offer. He's just he's truly a great guy, and he's definitely had his share
deep experiences.
But yeah, I was just going to throw that out there real quick. I mean, even with him, somebody we like a lot, we don't agree with, everything that he talks about. I don't think he's too much of a mystic. I could be wrong, but right. I'll take that.
I think he sees it more of a way to heal a lot of people and show them that there's more than what meets the eye, but...
And obviously we'll throw this out here, but we are definitely the most mystic.
Yeah, we're mystical and we're mystics in the serious sense of the word. I mean, I would define a mystic as
probably one of our favorite words.
someone who takes it upon himself to have this one-on-one relationship with the spirit world. You know, someone that sees that, you know, nature is the protrusion of the goddess, and we can learn from nature, and we can learn from her plants and her sacramental plants, you know, and we do magic. You know, we don't externalize, you know, our egos. We don't externalize our gods. You know, we know that we are spirit incarnate, and by being the universe, by being the latest articulation of the universe and the nervous system that I have, I can consciously connect to it, and I can connect to, you know, its energies, its hidden energies, and we can utilize them to employ our great will. You know, I think that's what a mystic is. Someone that learns from nature, learns from the plants. They don't have no preacher as their teacher. They have, you know, nature itself and your own experiences as your teacher. And mystics also know that, you know, what we see, what we hear, all of our senses are just a very small slice, you know, in the spectrum of experiences.
You know, throughout our youth, throughout our teenage years, we've listened to a lot of different variations of preachers.
Yeah.
Not only did it not click, because we've always been interested in just getting down to the truth of the matter.
Getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Getting down to the nitty-gritty, but it also was repulsive.
Yes, it was.
And it was obnoxious.
And, you know, these people are often judgmental fucks.
That's the thing that really got to me.
And, you know, they like to look at the woman that walks by with a pair of tights on.
I want to point something out.
Drinks fucking alcohol or whatever.
When, you know, my wife has changed her views on things big time over the years. We've had conversations about this type of stuff, but she realized, you know, she was just forced to go to church from a young age and just kind of continued, you know, a little bit after she was 18. We had talks, and I just explained why it is I see things this way. We've had this conversation at a very young age. But, yeah, when we had been dating for a few months, and I remember she was sitting just up next to me like this. Kind of had her leg a little bit on my leg. And the preacher came up with a tomato red angry face. And he said, I'm going to need you guys to scoot over a little bit.
Wow.
He said, I don't see rings on your fingers.
How about you go fuck yourself?
And that's when I said, is it any way, honey, we don't have to come here anymore? But that's just one example out of so many I could tell of judgmental.
Right. Yeah, we don't want love going on here, you know.
Oh, another thing. Oh, my God. Listen to this. Married couples in her church she used to go to wasn't allowed to kiss each other on the jaw or the mouth at the church.
What the fuck?
Her sister kissed her husband that she had been married to for over 5 years, and he talked to them in private after the service.
Too sexual.
And Casey, me and my wife, kissed each other when we was dating in that church, and this preacher's wife more or less lashed out at us. But it's interesting because let's point out some characteristics of this man, just to give you guys an idea. Obviously not going into any names or anything like that. This is a person that judgmental is the best way to put his personality. He was the type of person to constantly put down anybody under 40 years old. The youth, he just hates young people, and he showed that through
Because
his
he's
actions.
jealous that he can't get his fucking cock up. You know?
That's exactly what it is. He hates the youth. He talks about how lazy they are. And what does that say, by the way? I didn't even get to see it.
Oh, what did it say? Is there some flash on there?
Something went on and went back off.
It shouldn't be storage. I freed up a lot this morning.
Because
but-
usually that pops up right there.
Is it getting too hot? I don't know.